I would say availability is important, man. We got to be available. We got to do what we need to do, off the court in terms of preparation, in terms of getting treatment, in terms of getting the right sleep, the right type of hydration, having the right type of diet. I mean, everything has to matter to us for everybody.
Welcome to another episode of In Space. I'm your host, Chris Connor, and I have a special guest that I have been trying to track down for about 2 weeks now. We finally found a way to make it work scheduling wise. He was available, I wasn't available. I was available, he wasn't, but we made it work. I have Dr. Chao. You might know him on Twitter as Pro Football Doc. I mean, he's pretty much done it all. Ex-head team doctor for plus 17 years. He does live injury analysis. Dr. Chao, I wanted to ask you, first I'll start off, how you doing?
Good, and thanks for having me on and staying persistent. And to be fair, so your fans should thank you for your diligence and persistence. And to be fair, when you weren't available, it was more like on 5 minutes notice and 20 minutes notice. It wasn't like planned in advance notice. So it was more on me than you. So I apologize.
Well, either way, I definitely appreciate you. So before we get into the topic and we talk the Pelicans surrounding their health, I guess as of recent and going forward, I wanted to ask you, because my introduction to you, and I don't think that this is foreign to a lot of listeners, is that you're the doctor when someone goes down and they have an injury. I, out of nowhere, see your name on my timeline giving like instant analysis or people tagging, hey, Pro Football Doc, what happened here? And you have like 5 minutes to give an estimation, to give an idea, give analysis on something that you're seeing with your eyes. How is it being that individual?
Well, it's something that I fell into after being the head team physician for the Chargers. And, I did spend some time with the Timberwolves, a little bit with the Bulls. They do have some NBA experience, some baseball experience too. But I go by Pro Football Doc because honestly, it's a ripoff on Mike Florio, Pro Football Doc. And I've talked to Mike about it, and he's been very gracious. And when I started doing it, I said, what I do is I'm the medical Mike Pereira. And Mike Pereira, thankfully, has said, oh, he liked it and he wasn't insulted by it. And recently we even had Dean Blandino on my podcast. And now I say I'm the medical Dean Blandino. And so what it is it's just video. I'm not pretending or trying to even imply that I have examined this player or had x-rays or looked at an MRI. It's all by video. And video can tell you a fair amount sometimes. And I sort of stumbled into it. So after 17 years, I was finally stopped doing it on the couch. The Chargers have since moved to LA. I had boy-girl twins. And first time ever, I'm sitting on the couch watching TV on a Sunday. And a guy goes down, and the announcer goes, oh, that looked bad, but looks like he's going to be okay. He walked off under his own power. And I just sort of commented to no one in particular, no, his season's over. He tore his ACL.
Yeah.
And my wife turned to me, and she always makes me say that she said it kindly, so that it doesn't sound bad. But she looked at me and said, tell it to someone who cares. And she signed me up for Twitter. I was like, what is this, Twitter or something? I have no idea. I'm not a social media guy. And it turned out to be a good news vehicle, right? And
yeah.
And she was right. There was a lot of people who cared about it. And it's just video. So before people say, how do you know you're on your couch? Look, sometimes, Chris, I'm not even on my couch. Sometimes at my kid's baseball game and people are tweeting at me, or now at Sports Injury Central, sicscore.com, we have a staff of people that will WhatsApp and send me videos and so forth. And I'm looking on my cell phone sometimes. So it's not even sitting on my couch sometimes. Sometimes I'm sitting as a first or third base coach at my 10-year-old's baseball game, and I'm looking at the video. But the video, if you get a good angle at least for traumatic injuries, is pretty good. I mean, if you go to the doctor and you hurt yourself, I don't know, playing recreational indoor soccer, what does the doctor say? What happened to your knee? Well, I was running this way. Someone hit me on the outside. My knee went this way in the pop. That's the video, right? And
Yeah.
so traumatic injuries. And then the other thing that I say is, I'm not pretending to know. I know you're going to ask me about Zion and CJ McCollum and whatever. I'm not pretending to know all any of the details of their specific injury. But what we do at Sports Injury Central that's different is we're the only site that does true injury analysis versus injury reporting. We don't just take what somebody says and say it's fine. We say, well, does this make sense? And the injury analysis comes from myself and a panel of former pro sports team doctors who, to borrow a phrase from Hamilton, were in the room when it happened. Like, we were in the training room, in the locker room, examining these guys, and can see. And an example for your fans, I think some of them hated me at first, but if you think back to Zion last year, we were pessimistic that his return would be so quick from his initial injury there, right?
Correct.
And then when it was from his Jones fracture, this, that, the other injury, because of his big guy and the type of guy that he is and the type of athlete that he is, the amount of force. And then I think it was sometime in December when it was reported, basically the report was, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, nothing to see here. It's a minor delay. He's going to be whatever.
Yeah.
And we was like, no. This is more likely at this point season than not season. And I think by late December, early January, we were saying season. His season is over at this point in time. Now, he ultimately has recovered from that Jones fracture, but we went through all the video of, look, he's dunking. Is he coming back last year? But we're just like, from afar, based on insider knowledge, not insider information. Big difference, right?
Mm-hmm.
That we didn't think he was coming back at all last year. And obviously he didn't. And this time I'm sure we'll get into the hamstring. But that's just an example of what we do. Trying to apply our knowledge to a certain situation from having been there.
So for all of our listeners, audio or video, Dr. Chao's website is sicscore.com. That's where you can follow him and his team, given injury analysis, baseball, college football, NBA, NFL, pretty much across the board. So Zion, as we were talking about here, what I'm curious about, because it's not even for me the injuries in itself. I don't really, timelines and all those things. I'm more interested in the athlete from your perspective, in your time and all the different athletes that you've seen. Have you seen anyone that you think is even comparable to someone like Zion Williamson?
Well, in some ways and in many ways, no, right? I mean, what is he? I mean, you're probably not old enough. I'm old enough to have seen Charles Barkley. He's a more athletic and bigger and stronger Charles Barkley, right? I mean, kind of guy. The man blew out his shoe, which I've never seen before.
Yeah.
And that's actually my start with Zion. I remember a couple of reporters texted me and said, "You're blowing up and you're trending on Twitter." And I said, "For what?" And they said, "Zion Williamson." And honestly, I said, "Who's that?" At the time, Duke, North Carolina game. And I looked at the video and way back then we said, look, yeah, that's a worrisome deal, but we thought he'd come back for his league tournament and certainly for the March Madness. And he did, whereas everyone else like, oh, he never is going to risk his NBA career. And what I was saying is it looks bad. It's not serious. And of course he's going to try and play, because if he doesn't play, that would be a bigger question mark for his NBA career, because is he all about the money or is he about his team? And he did come back for his team in college, etc. So that's what we do. But yeah, Zion's a different cat. I mean, if you shrunk him down to a 6-foot guy, he would still be pretty thick.
Yeah.
He's a muscular guy. He's carrying a lot of weight. And one of the things you have to be careful about, I always say that guys get bigger, faster, stronger. But guess what? And I don't want to jinx Zion or anyone, your Achilles isn't really any thicker than mine. Your ACL really isn't any thicker than mine. Your foot doesn't really get bigger, faster, stronger, does it? I mean, it's so you're planting a bigger and bigger tree in the same size pot. Something's got to give. And, I live in San Diego, and historically, one of the most famous basketball players had that foot example over and over again. A friend of mine, Bill Walton, right?
Walton, yeah.
He was a 7'4" guy, and he had lots of problems, and we've seen it. So the bigger guys sometimes have more problems, especially when you carry a lot of weight. And I'm just talking about muscle weight. I'm not talking about what his weight status is. Mm-hmm. And guess what? For every pound of weight that you carry in your body, it translates to at least 10 pounds of force across your knee, ankle, or foot. So imagine, if you had a 20-pound backpack on, that's well over 200 pounds of additional force on your extremities. And that's a little bit of what Zion's dealing with. So there's a good and bad to how big and strong he is.
So what would be your professional advice dealing with an athlete like that, a one-of-one, right? Someone, I know a lot of folks try to, pin it simply towards the weight, others, maybe simply towards how he trains, how he changes his game. What do you think for him to have a career that lasts? He's had a serious injury, I think pretty much every year except one, every season except one. He's had setbacks with every injury that he's had that has costed him at least a month of time. What would be your professional advice just to keep him healthy physically for a dude that we know that these injuries take a toll on his body, but they've also taken a toll on his mental. So I'm very curious, what would, if Zion was your client, if he called you right now, he said, Doc, I need to figure out how to play as many games as possible. I need to figure out how to make this work, how to finally break this injury streak that I'm on and really maximize my potential. What would your advice be for him?
Well, the first advice is don't take any advice from me until I examine you, look at your images and talk with you about how you got here with these injuries and what you need. It has to be a very customized approach. For me from afar to say, this is what he needs and I know the answer is not real. I mean, you can take guesses as to possible solutions and what you would want to look at. But, and that's one of the other things that we do. Let's take another sport. Okay, back to football. Patrick Mahomes made a lot of news this week when he said, I'm still rehabbing my ankle. And he made a lot of news in the Super Bowl run with his high ankle sprain. And we were out there saying he's got a high ankle sprain, but he's going to play through it fine. And people are like, well, how can you do that? Well, the way he plays, his style, his off-platform throws, he's not a stick the back foot into the ground and go guy. He wrong foot throws and changes arm axis. And the way he plays, he was going to be able to make it through it because of his style of play. So it didn't surprise us that he could play well in the championship game and the Super Bowl. And that's what we said with his health and 6 scores, Sports Injury Central scores. But it also doesn't surprise us that he's still rehabbing his ankle and he's not 100%. It was a high ankle sprain. Both can be true. And so that's kind of what we do. We look at individual circumstances. We don't have cookie cutter, this is this for this guy. One of the reasons when there was all sorts of innuendo hype that Zion was coming back, maybe the last game of the season, we were still pretty negative at Sports Injury Central that he would return. Not because we're questioning his desire or so forth, but you have to look and say, he's missed all this time with a hamstring. I mean, this is the NBA, and he's a big guy. It's not just add water and he's ready to go. Yeah. He's got to work his way into full game minutes and other things, and the risk of re-injury and setback. And even if he were able to contribute with one game to go, or the much talked about playing game, maybe he should have played because he was dunking. Okay, he was about 3/4 speed at most, and and he dunked a basketball. I mean, him dunking a basketball is like nothing. Is like you and I waking up and brushing our teeth. I mean, yes. It's not that hard to do for him, and he wasn't full speed there. I get how the optics didn't look good, with him, and that's another thing that we can discuss. But even if he could play in that play game or did play, what about the chemistry of the team? You haven't played with the guy. You're just going to add water and you're going to win a play-in playoff game? I mean, that's no easy task either. I don't care if you're the star player, which he is, in whatever sport. You got to figure out spacing, what your role is, people to know where you're going. And there's some of that unspoken free flow nature in basketball that you can't just add water and play. And so that's in addition to a reason, besides his previous injury history, his big frame and whatever. And I don't know what his current weight status is, but he certainly looked pretty darn big in that little video before that play-in game. And there's a lot of issues. Everything is multifactorial before you decide, and return to play is not binary. So there's a lot of factors in it.
Okay. So I want to close out talking about CJ McCollum. I'm sure in your history there are guys, in the middle.
Hey, Chris, before we go to CJ McCollum, let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
Because you have your finger on the pulse of
a little bit.
Pelicans. I always say, if something doesn't make sense on the outside, it does from the inside. We just don't know as fans or observers from the outside what really is going on. And, when I was with the Chargers, there were times people would say, well, why are they doing this? This makes no sense. Well, no, you have some of the facts wrong. If you knew what we knew, you would make a similar decision. One of the things that I think that gives Zion a lot of grief, where people are saying he's injury prone, he's terrible, what is he doing, is we talked about it. You have a play-in game, which is kind of an all-in game, but yet the messaging from Zion himself is, I'm healthy enough to play. But there's no, but I'm not playing because of team chemistry / stamina, how many minutes. I mean, there was this, I'm healthy enough to play, and then he's out there dunking, admittedly not 100% the way that he moved.
Mm-hmm.
And the team didn't follow up with something the same with the way the previous year the fracture was handled. Oh, he's fine. He's almost back. And then delay. There's almost an implication. So my question is, and I don't know the answer to this, is it Zion? Is it his people? Does he not want to come back? Is he just out of shape? Is there a disconnect between him and the organization? It doesn't seem like they're in lockstep. And that's part of what I think fans say Zion. I see a lot that Zion's washed. Of course, I don't think he's okay. Why would you do that? But right now he hasn't done well. And I think a lot of that impression from fans is the mixed messaging that's come from the team and or Zion or his people. If you're not ready to play in the play-in game, somebody should tell him, don't go out there and dunk and look like you're ready, even though you're not full go there, right? Maybe that's on Zion. Maybe it's the team. I don't know. There seems to be some sort of disconnect, but I'm not blaming any one party. I'm just saying from my seat as a fan from far away,
mm-hmm.
something doesn't make sense.
You're speaking like a person. I know you say I have my fingers on the pulse of Pelicans fans, but you sound like you've been in the mix here, man. So before the exit interviews, the final exit interviews that took place last week, this was part of the discussion. Right, we hadn't seen Zion prior to pregame of the playing game. We hadn't seen Zion on the floor. I think it was probably 2 weeks before. It was a game in Denver. And then he gets in front of the media. He talks about the statement in which you ended up saying, like, I'm fine. Which David Griffin didn't during the exit interview disagree with to a extent or to a degree. Hadn't seen him in 2 weeks. Heard he was on his way back to playing. Then he's nowhere close. And then after not seeing him for 2 weeks, but there wasn't a reported setback. You see him again after a day after talking to the media. It was weird. It was weird. Then he says that he'll play again when he feels like Zion. But then he does a windmill to it. Yes, it was very confusing. And whether it was Zion, whether it's front office, whether it's the medical staff, whether it's Zion's team, family, whatever the case may be, I think we're all in a lot of respects trying to figure out where the disconnect is, because there clearly is. I would say the thing that makes the most sense is the conditioning and weight element. That seemed to be the thing that both were kind of tiptoeing around. They didn't want to say he was out of shape because he's, we know, you say that one time and social media goes crazy with it, starts calling him all kind of names. And that didn't go well for him mentally last year. And I'm sure it doesn't go well for anyone having to hear that constantly. And then the other side of that is he wasn't going to get in front of a camera and say, yeah, I can't play because I'm not in the right shape yet. So maybe saying when I feel like Zion is his best way of saying, the safest way of saying when I'm in shape. My hamstring is 100%, but I'm not in the shape that I need to be in right now to contribute, especially not in the game of this magnitude.
Now, I mean, to me, it's simple messaging. Okay, I'm in San Diego here. One of our hometown heroes, Joe Musgrove, dropped a kettlebell on his toe, broke his toe, missed a lot of spring training, and the toe has been ready, but his arm hasn't been ready. First of all, because the Padres explained what happened and said, look, I'm switching hands and it was a freak thing. And nobody's worried about Joe Musgrove. He's finally coming back now, but they simply explained, and the way I look at it, they explained that, look, because of the fractured toe, the toe is now fine and healthy, but we do spring training for a reason so we don't hurt his arm. And so his spring training didn't start until the start of the regular season. That's why he's going to need a good 3 weeks before he pitches the thing. That can explain it. I mean, I would think if the messaging was, my hamstring's actually okay, but I just started full workouts last week, and the game of NBA basketball is not that easy, and I don't want to be hurting the team, and we've come to the conclusion that this is what's best. That messaging could make sense. But you say you're 100% healthy, you do some dunks, and then you're not playing. I get why fans have questions. And there may be really nothing here except the messaging. And so I don't want hate mail that I don't like Zion. No, I'm a Zion.
No. The people that listen to this show,
yeah.
The people that listen to this show, Dr. Chao, will agree with you. That was one of the more frustrating elements. It's simply the messaging, how it's layered, how it's, even the organization being on the same page in regards to what they're telling their fan base.
I am not pointing blame at anyone there, including the medical staff. And I do know the medical staff, and especially your athletic trainer is excellent. So it's nothing where I'm implying that he's being mismanaged or something, but there's something going on behind the scenes that we're not privy to. And if we were, I think this would all make sense. and we wouldn't be looking for ways to blame. But I throw no blame at no one, including and especially the medical staff. I do not at all.
Listen, fair enough. I will say if you ever want a PR job inside of the New Orleans Pelicans organization, I'd love to see that work. No. All right, let me get you out of here, Doc, on CJ McCollum. So a lot of fans through some season polls that I've been looking at, just things that have been passed around, different podcasts, different shows. While CJ McCollum at times, from a performance standpoint, he had some rough patches. Surrounded by a team that had a ton of different injuries. Brandon Ingram played, I think, only 49 games. And I mean, beyond just Zion and Brandon, several role players missed crucial time throughout the season for various reasons. CJ was the one at 30, 31 years old. They played played 75 games. I think he was top 15 in total minutes in the NBA. And once the season is over with, we hear with some new, well, everyone knew about the thumb, about him having a torn ligament in his thumb, his shooting thumb. News to us as well was that he was playing with a torn labrum for about the last 2 weeks. I know it's specifically in the NFL that guys are playing through something from the minute they walk in. It's just playing hurt is a part of the game, and for most sports, that's just, you're never going to be 100% once the games begin. Can you go into how difficult it is, though, for an NBA player, or this period, playing through a torn ligament in your thumb and a torn labrum? Can you go into what those elements can possibly affect, and just how difficult it is for someone to go through those elements and still show up for work and have some productive outings?
No question. I mean, look, if you jam your thumb, I mean, any one of your listeners who's ever done that, you realize how many times a day that you re-injure it. Open your doorknob, reaching your hand in your pocket to pull out your keys, picking up some groceries or pulling a chair in and out. You're like, picking up your computer, right? And so, yeah, it's difficult. And there's no question. I mean, the NBA gets a bad rap for load management, et cetera. They do all this load management, and there's still all these injuries, and I think one of the biggest fallacies that people say that football is a contact sport and basketball isn't. That's not true. Football is a collision sport and basketball is a contact sport. There's contact all the time. And that's the difference. And these guys are so athletic and so big. Yeah, labral tears happen. It's something that you can manage. In most sports, players are playing through more than you know about, and the majority of surgeries happen at the end of the season rather than during a season. The cleanups and the get right stuff. We'll see what CJ McCollum has to go through, but it doesn't shock or surprise me that McCollum, they've let that out. But it's probably also a little bit league wide too. I mean, these things happen.
All right. Well, this was fun, man. It was really, really dope to connect, Dr. Chao. Once again, I will put your information up here on Twitter, guys. Please. I know I have a lot of people that play fantasy sports, and I'm sure that's a big portion of the people that contact you. they want to hear from you.
Well, I got something for your fans. It's up now. It's called Sick Insights, and it's at the top of the website, and it's and there's also a SIC score Twitter. And what Sick Insights is that it's injury analysis. So imagine come football season for your fantasy team, this running back is questionable, and we're saying they're questionable and should play without any problem, or questionable, and even if he does play, they're very limited in the snaps or whatever. So it's a quick way. Look, we all know in fantasy the easiest way to lose a matchup is, shoot, I played a guy that was either out or really wasn't going to get his carries because of injuries, because it's hard to do. If you just follow Sick Insights, and you can even turn on notifications for your players if you want through the website, you'll at least get a heads up to know. I mean, sometimes look, in fantasy, we don't have a choice, right? I only got one healthy, 3 healthy wide receivers. I'm playing them all. But when you have a choice, you can actually then, and without spending hours going through things. So that might be a fun tool for your, sports advocates going forward for football season.
Well, appreciate it again, Dr. Chao. I'm gonna let you get back to your busy life. Guys, this will, I think by the time you guys get this, it'll probably be what's today? Wednesday. It'll probably be up by Friday. Be sure like, comment, subscribe. Please let me know for any questions that you have for Dr. Chao going forward. What you thought? Maybe we'll get them back on at a later time. DraftKings Sportsbook. Shout out to you guys as always. Birdsall Law Firm, New York Life, all of our sponsors. Until next time. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.